Hey YouTube, what's chill? It's your old pal Fluff Shep here, coming at you rapid fire with another tier list video. And this tier list is going to be US President's tier list. To give you a basic rundown, if you've never seen any of these before, S tier is amazing, A tier still very good, B tier pretty good, but not quite at the level of either of these. C tier, D tier, and E tier are all kind of average, and F tier, and how did you even get elected tier, which I personally find quite amusing just because it breaks the sequence of letters, are both absolutely fluffing execrable. With that, let's get into the video. George Washington, first president. We're going in chronological order here. I'm going to put him at C tier because the thing is, I do give him credit for founding the nation, but at the same time, he's a slaveholder, and I just can't quite condone that or move him up any higher on this list. John Adams, second president and only Federalist president, so there's a presidential anomaly for you. George Washington, actually another presidential anomaly. He was the only president with no party. But John Adams, though, a few notes on him. He deposed slavery, which is good, but at the same time, he did sign the Alien and Sedition Acts, which made it a lot harder for immigrants to really make their way in this country and earn a high-paying job. So that I did disagree with. I can't really move him up much higher. Thomas Jefferson, one of the main writers along with the Constitution, along with John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, who is not on this list because he was never president, but Thomas Jefferson, I do give him credit for that, but at the same time, he's a slave owner. I just can't condone that. James Madison, he got the U.S. into the War of 1812, which wasn't all great. After that, what followed was a period known as the era of good feeling, in which there was relatively little war or political polarization in the United States, largely due to the fact that James Monroe stopped actually a possible secession from New England, which region which at the time was filled with a whole lot of Federalists. And he stopped them from being totally alienated and really turned things around, but he was a slaveholder, so I can't put him much higher than that. James Monroe, yet another early president and Virginian slaveholder. Slavery is just such an awful institution. This has to bump them down for me. I just can't put them any higher than this, even if they did do pretty well, which in general I thought James Monroe was actually okay. He did maintain the era of good feeling, period of very little as aforementioned political polarization or conflict, domestic or international, which is something that few of these individuals down here could really accomplish. Even so, can't put him any higher because I don't condone slaveholding. Slavery is an awful institution. C tier. John Quincy Adams would be next, and now John Quincy Adams, I'm gonna put him at C tier maybe. I couldn't find a whole lot on his domestic policies, as far as social policies go anyway, but he did make a lot of big infrastructure changes. He had a very aggressive approach. Wait, can't be. Yeah, wait. I want to see if I have the right image. Yes, that is the right image. I do have to put him up there because he did make some big strides with infrastructure. If you think about the Erie Canal, a lot of other canals, that was largely due to policies of his, so I do have to give him some credit for that. Now, the C tier's getting pretty crowded, but we're going to spread things out here because the next president is Andrew Jackson, whom I am going to put in the how did you even get elected tier. I absolutely hate Andrew Jackson. I believe, anyway, and a lot of this is my opinion and my interpretation of how things went, and please let me know if I get something wrong because I'm by no means an expert on this, but he signed the Indian Removal Act, and he started the Trail of Tears with the Chickasaw, Choctaw, Cherokee, Creek, and eventually Seminoles, who were able to hold out for a while, but still just a terrible thing. So many of them died. Just awful. And that is how he will be remembered for me anyway. That's awful. Martin Van Buren, his vice president, just continued a lot of the programs started under him. I hate this guy almost as much. Also very bad. How did you even get elected here is right for him in my opinion. Next up would be William Henry Harrison. Now, I'm going to put him in D tier just because, well, he ran on the slogan Tippecanoe and Tyler too. He fought at the Battle of Tippecanoe. That was kind of his thing during the campaign. There was even a song about it. John Tyler would later go on to be president, though, after he was his vice president for only about 31 days, because William Henry Harrison here gave the longest inaugural address that has ever been really in recorded U.S. history. I guess all U.S. history has been recorded by some way or another, because the U.S. isn't that old as a country. But still, he gave a 4-hour inauguration speech. And keep in mind, this is in a cold January in Washington, D.C., the Mid-Atlantic, which can get a lot of cold weather, and times, and some have said he didn't even have the sense to put on a coat, and so he actually died of pneumonia, partly as a result of that. 31 or 30 or so days later. Next up, there was John Tyler, his vice president. Gonna put him in the E tier. Wasn't that great? Kind of an expansionist. Not so, he wanted the United States to expand into Native American territories without really any regard for any of the Native peoples. And also, he ordered the firing of the peacemaker, even though the Erickson, the one who invented it, really said it wasn't ready. It killed a lot of people, including members of his own cabinet. I don't like him so much. E tier. Next, there will be, I believe, James K. Polk, who I really, really hate. This is a bad guy right here. He wanted the U.S. to claim much of Oregon country and California from from Mexico, or I believe New Spain at the time, because I don't believe, I believe the Mexican-American War would actually be fought during his presidency, at least partially, if not fully. Please correct me on that if I'm getting something wrong. He was just, neither government of New Spain or the United States had any regard for Native peoples and their needs. He's an expansionist, very bad guy. I don't like him. Zachary Taylor would be next. He died of cholera about 1 year into his presidency. D tier, just too small a sample size. Can't really say. He did serve as a general during the Mexican-American War. A side note. And actually, James K. Polk also died of cholera. They both died of cholera, so we're on a roll here. 2 straight presidents that have died of cholera. Not a positive thing, exactly, maybe in the case of Polk. But no, I mean, still on a bit of a roll. I know I shouldn't be making a joke out of that, but still, at least Polk was really bad. I don't know about Taylor. Anyway, because just too small sample size again. Next up, there was Millard Fillmore, and we're beginning the Doughface period here. Doughface, northerner who supported the South, and I can't remember whether Millard Fillmore was Doughface. He may have been, he may not have been. I feel like he was. Again, not entirely sure, but he was in that mold. He supported the Southern mentality behind slavery. But please correct me if some of this is wrong, because I might be kind of fuzzy here in terms of the facts. Yeah, I don't like him. Bad guy. After him, there was, let's see. Yes, Franklin Pierce, right over here. He was the epitome of a doughface. He definitely supported the Southern mentality behind slavery, and he was a Northerner hailing from New Hampshire. I don't like his policies one little bit. After that, yet another doughface, hailing from Pennsylvania, James Buchanan, whom I'm actually going to put in the F tier, in addition to supporting the Southern mentality behind slavery, which is just racist. He, just was racist, and, it was just awful, and I'm really not going to put him any higher, because in addition to that, he was just plain incompetent. I don't like him. Bad guy. Abraham Lincoln, S tier, and here's why. As I'm sure many of you may know, he got the U.S. He defeated the Confederacy. Just think how it would be if we still had the Confederacy today, and that would be awful. I mean, it's society is in with respect to civil rights is by no means perfect in this day and age, but it certainly would have been a lot farther from it had it not been for Abraham Lincoln's actions. The only two knocks on him I can think of are that after the Santee Dakota Revolt of 1862, he did hang a lot of Native Americans who participated in the revolt at Mankato, Minnesota. That was pretty bad. I'm not about to lie. That was pretty bad. It is a knock. I don't think it's quite, although it's really tough to say. Do his good actions outweigh the bad? I am going to put him in the S tier just because of the significance of many of his actions. Also, he did suspend habeas corpus, but that may have been for good reason, as he didn't want the Maryland legislature to vote against really, the certain. I think that may have been the Emancipation Proclamation. It may have been other legislation on slavery and relating to it. I can't remember. And Washington, D.C. may have been surrounded. The capital of the Union, the Confederacy, may have taken over. It may have been deeply demoralizing, if not, fatal for the Union Army had he not done that in a way, even though he did technically suspend habeas corpus, which questionable move, but still, I think maybe for good reason. So S tier. Next, Andrew Johnson. But where is he? Is this him? Wait, no. Why do I always confuse Andrew Johnson and Millard Fillmore? I'm sorry. This here is Millard Fillmore. I am so sorry about that. Darn it. This is Andrew Johnson right here. They must be the hairstyle, the bow tie, the suit, something. I don't know why I'm making excuses for myself, but still, Andrew Johnson, he did like everything. He's a Southern Democrat, and nowadays Democrats are really viewed as the Democratic Party is viewed as the more progressive party, socially speaking and economically speaking. But that back then, times were really different. The Republican Party was really more the progressive party. There were a lot of Southern Democrats who really who at a time supported slavery, and at this point he did everything he could to rip down what Lincoln had attempted to build in the brief period after the Civil War, what he called his Reconstruction programs. Johnson did everything he could to rip that down. F tier. Matter of fact, put him in how did you even get elected tier. Next, there would be Ulysses Simpson Grant, former U.S. Army general under Lincoln, who really helped to turn the tide of the war after Meade had won at Gettysburg. Grant took over, and I think I'm going to put him in C tier, and here's why. His policies with Reconstruction were good, but at the same time, as a general during the Civil War, he'd ordered all Jews out of the North. In spite of the fact that certain Jews did support the South, he generalized, and it was really anti-Semitic. I did not like that one little bit. So because of his anti-Semitic decree, I just can't move him any higher. Not in good conscience anyway. Next, there would be Rutherford B. Hayes. Wait, no, that's Chester A. That is Chester A. Arthur. Rutherford B. Hayes. Here he is. And I'm going to put him in the how did you even get elected tier, which is appropriate for him because he won by only, I believe, I don't know if this is true actually, but there is a chance that he only won by one vote. That is a rumor that has been, spread over the years. All he did, in my opinion, really, though, was stir up a whole lot of political polarization and try to do everything in his power to rip down the Reconstructionist reforms that Grant, in many ways, had attempted to rebuild after Johnson, where is he? Johnson had tried to tear them down himself. So, very bad. I don't like him one little bit. Next up, there would be Chester A. Arthur, and I'm going to put him in the D tier. Just the sample size is way too small. He got shot within his first year of the presidency. Don't really know what would have been. Sample size is too small. D tier. Next up, there would be Chester A. Arthur, who is right here. Some of his social policies may have been okay, but I'm gonna put him in E tier because he was kind of how to put it, an assimilationist. He believed in the gradual assimilation of Native Americans, I believe, and correct me if that's wrong, because I might be kind of fuzzy on this. Just overall, nothing outstanding to speak of with Chester A. Arthur. Up next, there would be Chester A. Arthur, then yes, Grover Cleveland. And now Grover Cleveland, he was the only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, a presidential anomaly yet again. But I'm going to put him in the E tier just because some of his policies were maybe alright, but he was really bad with unions. Unions hated him, and for good reason. He tried to put down a lot of their strikes, really very bad with unions. I believe in the importance of workers' unions, and he clearly didn't, so E tier. But in between his 2 terms was Benjamin Harrison. The annexation of Hawaii thing is enough for me to put him in the F tier. I would say probably. Wait, I'm just realizing, what are the dough faces doing in the E tier? I'm going to put those guys in the F tier, certainly. Except for Buchanan, because he's, or wait, no, that's not Buchanan. Oh, yeah, Buchanan is in the F tier, because he was, but actually Buchanan I might even put in the how did you even get elected tier. So we're up to Harrison. The annexation of Hawaii, and enough for me to put him there. Let's see then. After Harrison, or after Cleveland's second term, again a presidential anomaly, as was William McKinley. Now McKinley, this may surprise some people. I'm actually gonna put him in the B tier. I thought he didn't have a whole lot of splash policies exactly, but he was actually he was strongly opposed to lynchings, at least the lynchings that were really that time on the basis of race, and it was a terrible practice, or at least he opposed it strongly as his time as governor in Ohio, and so. Yeah, I'm gonna put him in B tier. Nothing overly negative that I found immediately, but please let me know if that's wrong, because I am by no means an expert on this stuff. I am by no means an expert on this stuff. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Next, after McKinley, there would be William Howard Taft, the one former Supreme Court justice to ever serve as a U.S. president. And with Taft, maybe I can put him in the D tier. He was, he wasn't totally awful. But he also, he did actually do one pretty good thing, I thought, which may be enough to move him up to C. But, he did, I'll move him up to C for this. He did oppose a literacy test for unskilled workers who were just, that would be, put into, a lot of maybe job applications or something for a lot of unskilled workers, or at least that's how they were, identified, and still kind of are. I thought that was good because at that point they're just trying to feed their families. They literacy tests often it's put into voting as a way to rule out people, often minorities, and the unions did actually support the bill that he vetoed, which would impose the literacy tests, and I generally agree with unions, but not in that particular instance, I think. Woodrow Wilson, this is going to surprise a lot of people. I'm going to put him in the how did you even get elected tier. I used to actually like him okay before I learned that he was just a raging racist. He showed Birth of a Nation at the White House. I mean, he, just his campaign slogan was even contradictory. I mean, not relating to the racism stuff directly, but he said his campaign slogan was he kept us out of war after his first term. That was his second term re-election hopeful campaign slogan, and he actually got the U.S., right into the war after that. So, yeah, but again, raging racist. Don't like him. Princeton's actually been his alma mater has been renamed has been either renaming or thinking about renaming a lot of their buildings because he was such a racist. Next up, there would be Warren G. Harding. Now, yeah, Warren G. Harding, just a lot of corruption in the administration. It's never a good sign when you have someone at the highest levels of government. His Secretary of State Harry Doherty had some stuff. A lot of other people had. Yeah, no, I'm not really going to put it much higher. Corruption defined the Harding era in many ways. Next up, there would be Calvin Coolidge over here. And Mr. Coolidge, I'm going to put in, let's see, where was I going to put him? Yeah, probably D tier, because in some ways there's nothing exceptionally awful, but then again, he did kind of, in effect, let the U.S. slip into the Great Depression by supporting economic speculation, when in fact the president who would follow, Herbert Hoover, right over here, would warn him about economic speculation, but Coolidge didn't listen, and he kind of let the U.S. slip into that anyway. One of my favorite stories of the presidents that I'd just like to take a little moment to tell, just because I find it so funny, is that one time someone actually went out to dinner with Calvin Coolidge, and she said she had made a bet with someone that she could get him to say more than 2 words at dinner, and he said, "You lose." And those were the only 2 words he said at dinner that night. That I just found kind of funny. But no, I'd say D tier. Herbert Hoover, I would say, is yeah, also D tier, because I do feel bad for Herbert Hoover because he did inherit the nation at its most difficult time. But at the same time, Hoovervilles, the shanty towns, were named Hoovervilles for a reason. He really didn't do much, and he was not an inspiring figure when America needed one. They did get one after him with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who really united the nation, and in many ways, and ended a little political polarization that was going on earlier, which is an impressive feat. But at the same time, I can't put him above C tier because some boats of Jews trying to escape the Holocaust at certain points or one point came to the U.S. and he turns them back, and I can't in good conscience put him higher than this for that. And also, he put a whole bunch of Japanese people in internment camps. Keep in mind, these are Japanese people most of whom I'm almost positive had absolutely no connection to the Imperial Japanese government against whom the U.S. was fighting in the Pacific theater of the Second World War. After Franklin Delano Roosevelt, got Harry Truman. Truman's over here. Truman was, do I put him in B tier? I don't know. I don't know. Tough to say for Truman, because I feel like, yeah, I'd say I'd say high-ish C tier. Say high C tier. And really, the thing with Truman is, well, he wasn't an aggressive president exactly on the international stage, although maybe in some ways he was. In some ways he wasn't, though, actually. He did get the U.S. into the Korean War, but at the same time, he told General Douglas MacArthur not to really push into China when the U.S. was having a push up from Incheon, which they captured, via Operation Chromite. But yeah, no, I'd say he was all right. C tier. Dwight D. Eisenhower, also, wait, no, not D tier. I'd say C tier. Kind of a run-of-the-mill Republican in some ways. But he did establish the interstate system, but in some ways, isn't that just kind of another way of, promoting carbon emission release, which is like the last thing we need right now? I don't know, just a thought, but, C tier seems right for him. Next up, there was John F. Kennedy. The C tier's getting awful crowded, but I am going to put him in there because, I just feel like he could have done more for the civil rights movement. I feel like he supported it, but not as actively as he could have. The Cuban Missile Crisis was looking very, very tense. That got scary for, I wasn't alive then, but for people who were, I'm sure that got, in either nation, I'm sure any one of the nations involved, I'm sure that got pretty scary. He did get the U.S. into the advisory period of the Vietnam War, which was not all positive, what with the Gulf of Tonkin incident and stuff. USS Maddox, I'd say that seems right for him. But his vice president, maybe as aforementioned, I can't remember whether I said this already or not. He was more involved with the civil rights movement, and that is one of the primary reasons I consider him an S-tier president. Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which really was a revolutionary piece of legislation as far as civil rights goes in this country, and I really admire him for that. The one issue is he did lie to the American people about a lot of what was going on in Vietnam exactly, but a lot of that was because he was kind of being influenced by General Westmoreland, who really, I think he really, there were certain details of the war Westmoreland really did not want to disclose to, the general public and make it seem different from the way it was. Other than that, though, I thought Johnson passed more legislation than probably any other president, so I think he's right up there with Lincoln. Next up, Richard M. Nixon. And I'm going to put him at, I'm going to put him at F tier, but that's being a little generous. The only reason I put him at F tier is because he promoted positive diplomatic relations between the U.S. and China. Other than that, though, Watergate was awful. He supported the whole notion of McCarthyism and, just kind of added another match spark to the flame, to the flame of fear that was McCarthyism. He leveraged fear to win over votes. And when you leverage fear to win over votes, I think that's a sign of a very bad leader. Yeah, not good at all. Frankly, I think F tier might be a little generous, but the China thing was good at least. Brought some pandas over here. That's about it. And I think we may have sent bison over there. Wait, what was it? I can't remember the exact exchange. There was something involving the National Zoo, though. Next up, we've got his former vice president, Gerald R. Ford. Not much better than, well, maybe a bit better than his president, just because he didn't do anything like really awful. But also Nixon continued the Vietnam War. He was pro-war, another note. But Ford, he pardoned Nixon. Not much to speak of other than that. Put him at E tier, after Nixon resigned, when he was pretty sure he was going to get impeached. And after Ford, there was Carter. And Carter, going to put him at B tier for these reasons. I think Carter, in terms of volume of legislation, was not excellent. But I thought that he was a great non-president, actually. After his presidency, he did a lot of great stuff, like, he became more involved with Habitat for Humanity. He started the Habitat for Humanity thing, but he actually did start that during his presidency, and probably some other good programs like that. So that is why I'm putting him as high as I am. Next up, let's see, Carter, and then Reagan. Reagan, I'm putting at F tier. He was very bad. He ignored the AIDS crisis, which is just terrible, which was really, plaguing a lot of, especially the gay community in the U.S. Just really bad that he, just ignored that. That's just terrible and absolutely despicable. Next, there was his former vice president, George Herbert Walker Bush. And now, let's see, Bush. Put him in the E tier, but he kind of, like the president he once served under, he he also didn't really do a lot with the AIDS crisis. Yeah, not a big fan. Not a big fan. Wait, did I forget to include Teddy Roosevelt? Oh my goodness, how could I have forgotten him? I am gonna put him in the B tier because well, he wasn't perfect exactly, but he did oppose European colonization of islands such as Santo Domingo in the Caribbean, and he started the national park system. I mean, how huge is that? I mean, that's pretty great there. So I will put him in the B tier. Um, Next you've got Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton had some okay policies in my opinion, but I'm gonna put him in the F tier. He all that stuff with the Monica Lewinsky scandal I found just really sickening, really bad. Just yeah, I can't in good conscience put him any higher. I view him as a womanizer and someone I do not have much respect for anymore. Um, After that, George W. Bush. I don't like him very much at all. I feel like his administration was almost trying to find ways to start wars in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, I think they may have been. He just the one thing keeping him out of the "how did you even get elected" tier is the fact that if he really occasionally he made a really good speech. Other than that, F tier, absolutely. Then Barack Hussein Obama, who actually made light of the fact that he probably couldn't use his middle name because it would be bad PR because of so much Islamophobia going around the country in a debate in the 2012 elections with his then soon to be opponent Mitt Romney. Obama, I think, has had I thought the only two knocks on him I can think of are that, well, I didn't totally agree with his immigration policies, and the other being that the drone strikes weren't great. But he did pull a lot of troops out of the Middle East, and I think his economic policies have been decent. I think I think he's an A-tier president. And then Donald Trump, guy we've got now, I'm going to put him in the "how did you even get elected" tier, which is very appropriate for him because he won on the Electoral College, but not the popular vote, and I believe someone else did here. I think it may have been, who was it? Was that Reagan? Maybe. Wait. Suddenly blanking. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it's very appropriate for him. This is the question I was kind of asking myself on November 8th, 2016. If I were addressing him, that's how it would have been phrased anyway. But I think he's been corrupt. He's trying to he's been playing with the end of the world, basically, because with nuclear weapons, it's really very dangerous when you start, he's starting to really abandon a lot of the U.S.'s allies, especially those in the EU or countries like Chad, which he put the immigration ban on because they had the wrong type of paper for the documents. It's like, makes no sense. And he's been, he's associated himself with Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, just very bad. And the worst thing I think he did was really the child cages. He Central American children, he's separating them from their parents when they tried to cross the border, escaping violence in their home countries. It's just absolutely despicable. And because I can't stand to look at his gosh darn smiling mug any longer, the video is going to end right about here. This has been the Fluff Shep Network. We will just be kindly reminding you to pose and bond those haters. And until next time, it's your old pal Fluff Shep signing out. So long, everyone.